Today in South Africa, we're celebrating Freedom Day. The generations of women before me sacrificed a lot and fought so that the generations after them can be liberated and be able to exercise their voice. As the generation now who are benefiting from those sacrifices, we are also faced with challenges that we cannot just turn a blind eye on them, but we need to also fight in order for the generations that come after us. They can also be able to benefit from our own sacrifices. Some of the crucial issues concerns that we are having in our days as women is the issue of our safety, the issue safety from violence that is the scourge of violence that many women are facing. Women being raped, women being beaten up, women and children, and many other injustices that women are facing. I was born for such a time as this, so that I can also play my part in addressing some of these social ills that I refuse to turn a blind eye on, so that those who come after me do not have to fight the same challenges that could have been either prevented or mitigated by my generation.
I've seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago, but all will be okay. I move on each and every day. The past is where it stays, way back a year ago. I've changed for the better this time. I thought I would never be fine.
So, welcome. This is Called to Serve podcast. I am your host. My name is Oyama Mvelweni. Today I will be sharing some further information, some research that I've also conducted on my part, which talks to the issue of I raised in my previous podcast that I will also be breaking down why I feel that gender-based violence in South Africa should be declared a national state of disaster. I will just take you through firstly in terms of what is disaster. Some of the disasters in South Africa that we have been declared previously, and where this multi-sectoral multidisciplinary efforts by various stakeholders were put together in terms of providing relief to those who are affected. But firstly, I will start with what is a disaster. So now I've taken some notes, because I've discovered that sometimes I can just lose my train of thought, which sometimes can cause some information that I would have loved to put across, and that information ends up not being recorded because I missed it. And also just also for my own editing purposes, it will be much easier now to just edit once because there will be the so because and the pauses will be minimized as notes are being as I've taken down notes and I'm able to cross-reference and elaborate on the notes that I have taken. So I believe this will be the best way moving forward for me to be able to just put out there the information that I believe is necessary. So just also as a disclaimer, the information that I'll be sharing today is information that I have researched from various sources, studies that have been conducted, and also I will also adding my own experience and my own experience in terms of life, and also in terms of experience in terms of my expertise is in terms of work, career choice, and also my own life journey. This definition is from the Disaster Management Act 57 of 2002. So what is a disaster? Disaster means a progressive or sudden, widespread or localized, natural or human caused occurrence which causes or threatens to cause, firstly, death, injury or disease, damage to property, infrastructure or the environment, or disruption of the life of a community, and is of a magnitude that exceeds the ability of those affected by the disaster to cope using only their own resources. So this definition breaks it down now in terms of, firstly, it's progressive, meaning that it is slow onset, or it's sudden. That means it can just happen and boom, the impact is large. And then it's widespread, meaning that it can affect a bigger area or just localized to that specific area. Natural or human caused occurrences which causes or threaten to cause death, injury or disease. Yes. So in South Africa, we've had quite a number of disasters that were declared either locally, provincially or nationally. We've had floods that were declared. We've had floods, quite a number of declaration of floods, quite a number of times on numerous occasions. We've had local floods being declared at a local level, at a provincial level, and also at a national level. And we've had drought, and especially in areas that have also the rural. We recently, the COVID-19, I'm sure most people were, some of them started hearing about disasters during the COVID-19 period, and that's where they started getting more information in terms of what is a disaster. And so COVID-19 is the declaration of COVID-19 as a national state of disaster. It introduced a lot of people to disaster and disaster management. We've had xenophobic attacks and also we've had felt fires and structural fires, and especially the Western Cape is the one that gets, and that is the one that has had quite a number of felt fires in the province. So what is disaster management? Disaster management means a continuous and integrated, multi-sectoral, multidisciplinary process of planning and implementation of measures aimed at preventing or reducing the risk of disasters, mitigating the severity or consequences of disasters, emergency preparedness, a rapid and effective response to disasters, and post-disaster recovery and rehabilitation. So who should be involved in disaster management? Firstly, Section 4 of the Disaster Management Act of 57 of 2002 states that the President must establish an intergovernmental committee on disaster management consisting of cabinet members involved in disaster management or the administration of legislation, MECs of each province involved in disaster management or the implementation of legislation in the respective provinces selected by the Premier of the province concerned, members of municipal councils selected by the South African Local Government Association, that is SALGA. So then the minister is the chairperson of the committee. Currently, disaster management is the discipline nationally now is under the department called COGTA, which is Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs. So that is where disaster management discipline is currently situated. So then that means the minister in that portfolio is the one who's going to chair those committees, the meetings of the committee. The committee now must give effect to the principles of cooperative government on issues relating to disaster management. And also the committee is accountable and must report to Cabinet on the coordination of disaster management among the spheres of government. The committee must advise and make recommendations to Cabinet on issues relating to disaster management and on the establishment of a national framework for disaster management aimed at ensuring an integrated and uniform approach to disaster management in the Republic by all national, provincial, and municipal organs of state, statutory functionaries, non-government institutions involved in disaster management, the private sector, communities, and individuals. So, all in all, when I sum this up, it means that disaster management is everyone's business. So everyone should be involved in disaster management. That is what this means. Communities, businesses, NGOs, all government spheres should be involved in disaster management. So currently, where is the disaster management discipline function? The function is situated nationally, as I mentioned. The function of disaster management is sitting with the Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, COGTA. So the declaration now nationally of the disaster, the minister may by notice in the Gazette declare a national state of disaster. With the information that has been gathered from the provincial and the local level, that information is the one that will determine or that will influence the decision, or in terms of if there's a need for a declaration at the national level. Provincially, the function of disaster management is sitting with the department designated by the Premier in the provincial administration. The provincial declaration, the Premier of a province, after consultation with the MECs, may by notice in the Provincial Gazette declare a provincial state of disaster. So provincially, we have 9 provinces, and similarly to the local municipality, the situation, the function of disaster management is not as much as nationally there's encouragement of uniformity across the various provinces and across the municipal level in terms of technology being used, risk assessments, methodologies being used in conducting risk assessments. There's encouragement of uniformity, but the disaster management function is not situated. It varies from province to province, and also locally the function of disaster management depends on that specific municipality. I've worked in 2 different metropolitan municipalities. In the first one, the disaster management function was, there are similarities, like I may say that. The disaster management function was sitting with the community safety, together with the emergency services, disaster management and the emergency services. It's like that for most municipalities. It's disaster management and emergency services. And for some, metropolis would be a standalone, and for some it would also be they would amalgamated or merged to be one department. And also for the local, the declaration, the Council of the Municipality, by notice in the Provincial Gazette, declares a local state of disaster. What is gender-based violence? According to UN Declaration on the Elimination of Violence Against Women, gender-based violence is any act of gender-based violence that results in or is likely to result in physical, sexual, or psychological harm or suffering to women, including threats of such acts, coercion of or arbitrary deprivation of liberty, whether occurring in public or private life. Violence against women shall be understood to encompass, but not be limited to, physical, sexual, and psychological violence occurring in the family and in the community, including battery, sexual abuse of female children, dowry-related violence, marital rape, female genital mutilation, and other traditional practices harmful to women. Non-spousal violence and violence related to exploitation, sexual harassment and intimidation at work, in educational institutions and elsewhere, trafficking in women, and forced prostitution and violence perpetrated or condoned by the state. It's quite broad in its definition. But I know in my own experience, and also reading the news and conducting this research, that a lot of women have endured, experienced one or more of these various acts that have been mentioned in this definition of gender-based violence. A lot of women have experienced one or more of these. I have surely experienced I was raped at the age of 6 years. My family did not report the incident. It was discovered when I had sustained blisters on my genital area, and I was taken to the clinic eventually, and where the clinic they discovered that I had been penetrated on, and they reported the matter to the police. The matter was, I remember vividly going to the court, and that's where now my uncle, my aunt's husband, I was raped by his nephew. My aunt's husband, I saw him giving someone money, and I never went to court after that. And the community in that area, I was shamed. I felt, I could sense it, that was when I went there again, I could sense it, that I was being blamed for what had happened to me. I was raped again at the age of 8 by a cousin. My family hid this. They did not report it to the police. He's still walking free even today. I don't know if he has raped any other girl after me, but chances are very high that he did rape more girls after me, because he got away with it, and therefore that meant that he could do it again. Who would stop him from doing it again? I was raped again at gunpoint in year 2000, the year I was doing my matric. I was 17 years of age, by 2 men. I was on my way to attend winter school. I was raped by these men. I went to the police, I reported the matter. I was taken to a doctor who conducted an assessment, and I was given the post-exposure prophylaxis pills that I took immediately. And then I was just sent home and told to go for counseling, which I think was 1 or 2 sessions of counseling. The police never asked me they never draw a sketch on the perpetrators. They never asked me to try and draw a sketch. The police never even went to see the area where I was raped. They never even went. And I am certain that I'm not unique to this. So I'm sure a lot of women also, and also children who are being raped, these incidents are not reported to the police, and the perpetrators they go scot-free, and they continue these vicious acts, and they get away with it because it's not being reported. Instead, it's just being kept as a family secret, while the survivors are left to deal with this on their own. And they grow up, like myself, I grew up a very angry person, very filled with fear, and also very insecure, because I felt like I was rejected, I felt abandoned, I felt like I was not safe. And I also was in a relationship where I experienced extreme forms of abuse. I was abused psychologically, sexually, physically, and financially. I felt very, very abused in that relationship, which lasted for a year. It was difficult to get myself away from the relationship because I was scared. And at the same time, I did not want to report I did not want to report it because it was threatening my family, it was threatening me. And it was difficult for me to get, I was at varsity, and he would stalk me and following me to school. The only way I got out of that relationship was the grace of God. And he kidnapped me for 3 days. and he would take my phone away from me. And he would lock me up. I couldn't go to school. And I was experiencing extreme violence, and I could not report this. I've also been sexually harassed at work, and to the extent that now I did not report also this, and I know I should have, was it still continuing, where I felt the times that I was not safe with this person, because in my career, in my work, I work at night also, where I have to respond to incidents, and it's not safe. I fear for my life. But I have to work for my children. There's a lot of women who also feel like they have no choice, who have to use public transport, who have to get up, go to work very early and come back home very late. And they have to do this. They have to go and work for their children. They have to go and work for their families. And those women, they do it fear, and they don't know if they will come back home to their families. Some make it, some don't, but it's a daily struggle. Daily struggle. There's been a lot of research conducted by various researchers, universities, and NGOs who have done, and also Statistics SA, who have done in terms of the crime levels, which escalated drastically during the COVID-19 period. It was reported that the gender-based violence statistics escalated drastically during the COVID-19, and the numbers have been rising, and but now the Statistics SA has estimated that 21% of women over the age of 18 years have experienced physical violence by a partner, while 6% of women experienced sexual violence by a partner. It is commonly believed that the report on gender-based violence are inaccurate, since many cases go unreported in the country. Gender-based violence has serious consequences for women's health, such as homicide, suicide, AIDS-related deaths, as well as physical injuries, chronic pain syndrome, gastrointestinal disorders, complications during pregnancies, miscarriages, and low birth weight of children. So these are serious consequences due to gender-based violence. So currently there's various initiatives that the government is undertaken to try and reduce or mitigate the scourge of gender-based violence in the country, and where the government can also prevent. So there's been amendments to various legislations, criminal and related matters, amendment bill, domestic violence amendment bill, and also criminal law, sexual offences and related matters amendment bill. Those three have been, there's been amendments that have been made on those legislations, on those pieces of legislations. Also, we have a Department of Women, Children and People with Disabilities, which caters for our most vulnerable groups. The issues that our vulnerable groups are facing or are being challenged with. Also, we have various programs such as shelters for women, hotlines which provide assistance and some form of relief and counseling for women who are affected or who are facing gender-based violence. And also we commemorate 16 days of activism each year, where we look at issues of gender-based violence in the country. But as much as, yes, these initiatives are needed, but I believe that it's a question of now, are they coping with the number of cases, the backlog, and also addressing the issues of that gender-based violence is not only affecting, it's not only the issue of the victim or the survivor, but also the people who are their families. For instance, if a woman is killed by her husband, the children will be gravely affected from losing their mother. Some of them also witness this, and also now losing their father who will be incarcerated. So there's a lot that still needs to be done, and where we can prevent, it should be prevented, where we can drastically reduce the impact, and also where we can prepare for some of these vicious acts and horrendous acts that are being done against our most vulnerable groups in the country, most vulnerable people in the country. And I also believe 16 days of activism should not just be only during that period of 16 days, but it should be a daily effort by all of us. As I've said, that last time, gender-based violence declared as a national disaster, national state of disaster, should be everyone's business. Should be everyone's business. So why I believe that gender-based violence should be declared a disaster. Firstly, gender-based violence is catastrophic to the victims and their loved ones. It affects households and communities at large. Also, gender-based violence has led to death, disruption of people's lives, and also injuries. Those that are affected, it may be asked if they are able to cope using only their resources. I myself, I couldn't cope with all that had happened to me. I couldn't cope. I'm still living a life of fear even now. I'm still very fearful. I fear to go out, and I ask myself if I will come back to my children. I fear for my children. I fear every day. It's a daily struggle. And I wonder if how many women out there are living the exact same way, where they don't feel safe in their country, feel safe in their homes, feel safe in their communities. And also those that has already happened to them. How are they coping? How are they healing? How are they healing from this traumatic experience? And their families who have lost loved ones due to gender-based violence, how are they also coping with the loss of their loved one, and that what has been done to their loved ones? How are they coping? I really plead to our government that our government should declare gender-based violence a national state of disaster in South Africa, so that we are able to come all hands on deck in addressing this humongous monster that is, it's not even now a slow onset, it's sudden. It's sudden now. That is affecting our women, our children, our elderly, our people, people with disabilities in our communities. It's affecting a lot of women. It cuts across race, it cuts across status. Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching. Take care then. Goodbye. Till next time.